Hello, and welcome to Where's the Line, where we explore the gray areas of life. My name is Jane, and I am here with my co-host, Sabrina Fruhoff. And today we have a very special guest. Sabrina, do you want to introduce our friend?
Yes, Jane, thank you. I'm so excited. We have the beautiful Sam Schafer with us. And Sam has been a true friend for both of us for a while now. We worked together. And then during the pandemic, there was really some special moments that we shared where we kept having one-on-ones and just dove into certain topics. I shared more about my own journey and how I'm doing a coaching program to really explore my own life a little bit more and what I want. And Sam and I just really bonded over that to figure out, what is it that we truly want? What is love for us? We kept talking about relationships and what has worked for us and what hasn't. And I just think she's a wonderful person for this topic that we have today around self-healing after a breakup. So Sam, would love for the audience to learn a little bit more about you. So feel free to share away.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I love talking about this topic in particular, but also just I'm so happy to be able to chat with you both today. A little about me. So it's funny, we have all bonded virtually. It's interesting to think about that too, because I'm in San Francisco, you both are in the Midwest. So it's just been really cool to continue to have a relationship over Zoom and over the phone. But I'm based in San Francisco, work in San Francisco, moved out there from Texas. So I'm actually from Texas originally, but now I'm a West Coast person. And just find myself really loving the outdoors now. I've become an outdoorsy person, which I never thought I would be. And just living out in California has also opened my eyes to a lot of who I am, who I want to be. So it's definitely totally in line with today's discussion, just having been out there and so much growth and change that's happened over the last year. So I'm just really delighted to be here.
Yeah, welcome. Thank you for being here with us. And we're very excited to kind of hear about your perspective on this. So just like Sabrina mentioned, today we're talking about self-healing. There's just so many aspects to this, right? Different people are at different stages when it comes to healing.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also aspects of healing from relationships, from breakups, healing from even like friendships, right? Or partnership with your family. So there's just so many aspects to this topic. I think for me, just to kind of kick it off, I'm not as experienced as the both of you guys on this topic. I feel like the two of you have had a lot more like intentional thought around this particular topic. So I'm really just here to learn and here to listen about you guys' journey. And I know we're also at very different stages in life as well. Like you two are both single and dating, and I'm, engaged. And so we're kind of going through different phases as well, even amongst the three of us. So maybe just to kind of start it off, like Sabrina and Sam, I would love to hear your perspective on self-healing, maybe just at a high level.
For me, in January 2020, before the pandemic started, I went through a very tough breakup, and I would say I hit rock bottom. And from there, it was almost, I believe in signs and signals from the universe. And this coach appeared on Facebook, who is an old friend of mine. And she always talked about finding your inner peace, finding your inner light, and finding your self-love and accepting yourself. And I always thought, oh, what is she talking about? It's kind of out there, but somehow it stuck with me. And when that breakup happened, I really thought, all right, this is I have to pull this trigger. I need to make some changes in my life, as I was reflecting on not only that relationship, but other relationships in my past. And I could definitely detect a pattern. So going on this journey with this coach, it was a 6-month program. It was life transformational for me. And I'm so incredibly grateful, because we covered a lot of these topics around what are some of the learnings, the lessons, right, from this breakup. What how are you growing out of that? What have you learned? Also, what part did you play in that, right? Because I was always someone to point fingers and to blame the other person. But during this self-healing journey, I really learned that there's a lot of things that I needed to do better and I needed to take more ownership of. And in reflection, it also so appeared that some people are just not those right matches for you, right? And just accepting that and coming out of it stronger. It really, really helped me just working through that with this coach. And also, yes, in terms of spirituality, the universe has a plan, all of that. I was never a true believer of that, but just having more and more of these examples and really going within and looking at some of my shadows, if you will, right? The sides of you that you may not like as much, but learning to accept and embrace those. It's a big part of this healing journey. So, but Sam, on to you. I would love to hear more about your journey.
Yeah, I resonate so much with so much of what you've said. I was trying to think back too, as we were talking before we started recording, that when did I start thinking about this stuff? And I really was thinking about my self-healing journey before I even moved to California, but it was kind of passive. It was, I would recognize something bothered me, or I'd feel like triggered by something, and I would just suffer in silence. And I would talk about it maybe with people that I cared about, but I wasn't really in control of my emotions. I felt very beholden to the things that were happening to me in my life. And it wasn't until I got a coach myself, which is how we started talking about this, to help me with my career. But I actually found myself realizing that so much of my issues were coming from something deeper. So the kind of catalyst for it was my breakup as well, but I was already dabbling in it. It was more of finally going, is there a world where I don't have to suffer so much? Can I actually figure out a way to better manage this, so I don't just have to like ride this thing out until it's finally done? Is there a way that I can, expedite that process? And like you said, Sabrina, I think a breakup or situations like that often push us to really figure out what that looks like, because we don't want to feel pain forever. And I was definitely in a, how quickly can I move through this and not feel like I do right now? And I think in that regard, it's funny because I've realized that the journey, the self-healing journey, is not a finite thing. It goes on forever. It's a ride that you never get off. And for some, I think that can be really intimidating, but I look at it as a really great, wonderful, beautiful thing, because there's always going to be things that come up in your life that start to remind you that, okay, that little thing bothered me. Now, why is that? And how do I fix that, or at least better manage it so that I can go through life a happier, more peaceful, less suffering person? So that's definitely been my reason for it, and kind of the background of what brought me to this journey myself.
Yeah. And that's incredible, because it seems like both of you guys have had a different but similar experience, right? And in some ways they're similar, or maybe the catalyst is similar, but it just feels like you two have gone through so much work, reflecting on yourself, reflecting on your issues, like you mentioned, Sam, and having that coach it sounds like it's just like a great way to open your eyes to a lot of the issues that you've just been dealing with, silently. I'm kind of curious, because earlier both of you mentioned that a big catalyst of what is pushing you to explore yourself further or to go through the self-healing process has been a particular breakup. What do you think is, the right time for you to get back out there when it comes to dating in particular? Is there a, let's say, a specific point in time where you will be ready to do so, or is healing, throughout? I know, Sam, you mentioned this is something that you'll have to continue to do. Yeah, would love to just hear, like, on the dating front, how does that work for you guys?
Yeah, I'll say that for me, it's been over a year now since my breakup, and I still sometimes have little moments where I'm like, oh, I remember that thing he said, and it really still bothers me. And that's when I realized, it's a ride you never get off. So it's like, there really isn't a finite or, particular time where you should say, okay, after 3 months, I can go date other people. Like, it's so personal. And for me, I needed more time, I think, to really heal from some of the hurt that I felt, and also just realizing that this person kind of called out things that I knew about myself, or things that I didn't like about myself, that probably it could have been done in a much kinder way, but nonetheless, it was said. And I had to go inward and go, okay, I really don't want to bring that to my next relationship. And so for me, I wanted to take that time to work on that and think through that before I just got back out there and repeated the same behavior over and over. That's just me. I'm so much of a like problem solver, and okay, if there was a problem in the relationship with that thing I did or that way I handled that situation, how do I fix that for the next time? But I will say, like, to a point, you can do too much of that. So I'm working on maybe not being so deprecating in that way, and that like a relationship can help you learn too. It doesn't mean that you have to fix everything before you start a new relationship.
Yeah, and I appreciate you calling that out. And I think that's where you and I have some unique perspectives in terms of you tend to go the route of self-deprecating a lot, right? Versus I used to just blame the other person more and more. And I do part of that self-deprecation as well, and I feel like all of us do. But yes, I agree. It takes time, and every person is different. I was intentional about, during my coaching, I did not date. And then after that ended, I felt ready, in the sense that, okay, I feel like I know some of these things that I don't want to repeat. I was very much looking at my own insecurities and figuring out what could I work on in terms of becoming more confident. Also, what can I take into this next relationship? Not self-abandoning, not people pleasing as much, not being so codependent, all the things that I learned about myself that I used to do. But it's also, in theory, this all sounds wonderful, right? And then as I put myself back out there, I realized really fast that there's still a lot of things to be worked on.
Mm-hmm.
So still going on, but at least we're self-aware, and we're it's a constant progress, I guess.
I think that's okay too. I mean, and I say this to you, Sabrina, when we talk about people that we're both dating, and we're so hard on ourselves, right? You know, it's like, I don't want to do this again. Like, why do I pick the wrong guy? This guy's just like the last one, or whatever it is we're saying. But I think that it's like an onion. You know, you have to continue to pull back the layers, and certain situations will teach you something, and then you realize, okay, there's even more to learn about that situation, but I have to keep doing kind of the same thing again in different formats. I felt that way with dating a little bit too, where like I thought I really wanted a specific type of personality, someone like myself, LOL, which is also something I'm learning that I don't want now, because when you're with someone that's too much like you and thinks about the world the way you do, that cannot always be a good thing. And the person I dated was very much similar to me in the way that he thought about the world, and it made for great conversations, and we definitely like connected on that. But the days where I start to get kind of more cynical, or maybe too introspective, where I start to lose sight of like, let's like have a happy day and let's laugh about something today, I can't continue to date those types of people that aren't going to bring that side of me out too. So I think I've had to date multiple people that are like that in order for me to go, you know what, maybe that's not it for me. Maybe I want someone a little bit more different than me, that's going to pull out sides of me that I don't readily access if it's not for someone that's different. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And even your earlier point, Sam, about like the journey never ends. That's an area that I, like while I've not had as thoughtful of an experience as the two of you had around self-healing, I do really believe that is something that like is very true. I feel like even your example of like, you need a partner who can help you get out of the funk, right? Or like your negativity or your self-deprecating, all of that, I can definitely say, like, once you find a very supportive and loving partner, or like the partner that is right for you, I think that's a very big part of your self-healing journey. I can imagine that that's a big part of your self-healing journey too, where sometimes you get into this negative cycle and I definitely exhibit some of the things that you guys were talking about. I'm very much a self-deprecating person, and I get into that cycle when I'm going through some, really tough times, or when I'm not getting certain results, right? Whether that's at work or in life. And I find that having a partner, at the end of the day, fundamentally, we're very similar, right? I'm not going to, forego those things. But I think in many other ways, we're very, very different. And I think having somebody like that has really helped me, number one, get out of this negative cycle altogether, like just to push me out of it so that I could see it in a different perspective, has helped me a lot. And I think you're exactly right, Sam. If I was dating somebody very, very similar to me, we would just continue to be negative Nancy's together, and it'll just exponentially get worse because you're in the same mindset. So I can imagine, when you guys are with the right partners, they're not only going to uplift you and help you get out of your cycle, but also continues to support you in your, self-healing journey, because that's going to be for a big part of our lives. That's going to continue to be, a process that we'll have to experience. The one thing I would love to hear more about too, Sam, earlier you were saying, you don't want this to be limiting. You don't want self-healing to limit you to get back out there. Talk to me more about that. Is there a limit? Is there a point where you're thinking so much and you're reflecting so much internally that you're almost closing yourself to opportunities to date? Or it doesn't even have to be dating, but just opportunities to kind of, be open again. What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, I think that's a great point, because I am definitely a super introspective person. Anyone that knows me is like, that's part of my self-brand at this point. It's kind of embarrassing, I guess, but I'm also just going to own it, because I do love exploring myself. I love exploring other people. I'm fascinated with the way my mind works. And so I also really love talking to other people about what they're thinking about too. But I do, to your point, think that there is a place where, for me personally, because I enjoy it so much, it's fascinating and it's intriguing, but it can be limiting for me personally, because I'm such a perfectionist. And that's something that again, part of my self-healing journey is figuring out, where does that derive from, and why do I feel like perfection is the only option? Like, there isn't a way to be imperfect and still be successful. And I've definitely moved many mountains to get to a place where I can see that path. But I think for me, when it comes to friendships and relationships, I really have a hard time if I get it wrong, because I look at it like, well, if I get it wrong, will this person want to be with me or be my friend or be in my life at all? And while conceptually I understand, like, people make mistakes, I have friends and relationships that I've had where people make mistakes, and I'm fully okay with that. I'm just not okay with it with myself. So if you're that kind of person that is really, really tough on yourself and has a hard time like forgiving yourself when you make mistakes, the self-healing journey can get a little too much like a hamster wheel, where you're like, I don't want to get out because I'm afraid to make a mistake. I don't want to get out because I'm afraid that I won't do it exactly right the way I rehearsed it in my head. I feel like I sound neurotic, but that's the way my mind works. Like, I really think about, okay, how would I recreate this scenario and behave differently because I want a different result? And the truth of the matter is, and what I'm really working on now, is being okay with the process instead of focusing so much on the goal. The goal is to have a successful relationship. The goal is to have successful friendships, whatever my goal might be. But instead of focusing so much on the goal, which in my mind, I see perfection and must be perfect to get there, the process to get there is what I need to focus on more. And so that's really what I've been leaning into as of late, is just enjoying the ride a little bit and going, oh, that was kind of awkward the way that happened, and I'm going to do it a little differently next time. But not being so hard on yourself through your self-healing journey can make it not limiting. But if you find yourself as a perfectionist, be very careful not to just like beat yourself down and use it as a way to like be hard on yourself when you really don't need to be. The point is to, explore yourself and not to, shame yourself, which I thoroughly enjoy doing.
Yeah, I can imagine that. And it's tough, right? Because you're tough on yourself. So yeah, it's the same idea. You would get into that negative cycle of being afraid of going out there and then, acting not yourself out there and then ultimately failing in certain relationship, friendship, whatever it is. Yeah, I can definitely see that. Sabrina, any thoughts there? Do you ever feel like, it's kind of holding you back or potentially limiting you?
Yeah, I love what you said about the process and enjoying the process. Sitting in that discomfort and being okay with that is so incredibly critical. And I definitely had to learn that also. So I feel like as human beings, we're so focused on the outcome, right? Like if I do this, if I get to that, then I'll be okay. If I get this promotion, if I get this relationship, and that's just, and I don't want to talk about right or wrong, but that process has not really worked. I mean, at least for me. And so just being okay with where I'm at and accepting that. And to your point, like not beating myself up, not being too hard on myself, knowing that at the end of the day, I will be okay and things will be okay. And just, and yes, I mean, you can research a lot of these topics, right? I've gone down the rabbit hole and then researched attachment theory and what to say on a first date and all these things. And that can be quite limiting. So I removed myself from that a little bit. Like I have the knowledge, but I'm really trying to just go out there and have fun with dating and meeting people and love how you phrase it, just exploring other people. And if after a first date it doesn't work out, that's okay. I met a new person and that's gonna help me grow again and just get me closer to who I'm ultimately supposed to find, but not being so obsessed about who I'm gonna find and more so just taking joy in the journey.
Yeah, Sabrina, I just wanted to touch on something that you mentioned that like attachment theory. There's so many books and things like that. I feel like I hear that a lot. I've never actually read the attachment theory books or really dived into that, but I hear so many women talk about it. And what I always hear is that it's like I think it's knowledge that's helpful. And this is just a point I'm going to make about self-healing in general too. Knowledge is helpful, but don't use it as a weapon against yourself. And I think I hear the attachment theory stuff a lot from my girlfriends that are single, where they're like, I'm anxious attached, like and they are shameful about it. And I'm like, or I'm avoidant attached or whatever it's called. I don't know the terminology very well, but I've never liked it for the reason that if you're using it as a tool to understand yourself better and then to improve, great. But if you're going to say like, oh, like now I'm that person, great. So now I'm identified as this. That's my label now. And I don't want to use labels anymore. I started doing that this year where it's like, I'm not these things that I call myself, which I'm really good at doing as well. I'm like, I'm not a loser because I said that thing. I did something that was a little awkward and I'm going to fix that. Or I'm not a failure because I didn't get that right. I just didn't get that right. Talking about yourself as something that you do versus what you are. So that just made me think about that, because in a self-healing context, it's really easy to kind of use all this knowledge against yourself and start to label yourself as, I'm a 3, like the Enneagram is the same way. It's like, I'm a 3, so I'm this, and this is my personality. And it's like, don't use it as a weapon, use it as a tool. And I think that's where I've had to really be careful about exploring all these different theories, because they're interesting, but then they can be definitely detrimental if you're not careful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jane and I have talked about attachment theories and we went down a little bit into the weeds, but I am so glad you called that out, because that is so true. You should not define yourself through that. There's a difference between having the knowledge and yes, like using it to grow and maybe, exploring other ways or exploring other relationships, but let that not define you. Like I am not, even though I deploy some anxious attached like tendencies, or I have those, it doesn't mean like I am that. So I love how you phrased it.
I also think it's as a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Like when you believe that I am anxiously attached, you start to act anxiously attached. And then you start to think,
Yes.
oh, I might be behaving. Then you start to get in your own head in a relationship. Am I being too this or am I being too that? And trying to categorize yourself to the things that fall into anxiously attached or this type of attachment or that. Like, no, we all have partially anxiously, like for me, I might be a certain attachment if you really did the quiz, but there are other behaviors that are in other buckets. So I think it's just, I think you're exactly right. Like it's the journey, it's not identifying yourself to that broader category, but also like working towards what you would like to be, like taking that step and going through the process. But yeah, I can see that that would be such a self-fulfilling prophecy once you put yourself in that category and you can't get out of it. So that's really
That's a really good
interesting.
point, Jane. I've definitely explored manifesting, and that whole topic is super popular too. And it's all about the way that your emotions around what you want. And so if you're focused on like, I don't want to be this person, it's going to be really hard not to be that person. And I do
Right.
that a lot where like I've gotten feedback, and I think going back to like the breakups, and when you're in a relationship and then it doesn't end up, panning out, sometimes it ends amicably, but I unfortunately didn't have that situation. It was a little bit more of like an angry ending, and things were said that were hurtful. And so a lot of the things that I had said to me, I internalized, and I'm like, okay, so I am that because this person that knew me really well, and I, really got to know them, and they saw all the things about me, in even just a short time, that must be who I am. But I think what I've had to really focus on as well is to turn around the phrases in my head that I like to say of I am mean, or I am an angry person, or whatever, whatever the feedback is. And instead saying I was angry when this happened, or I was mean when I said that thing. But that doesn't, like, again, goes back to the labels of like not letting it define you, and not letting, because then if you, like you said, the self-fulfilling prophecy is real, where, okay, well, I'm mean, so I'm going to be mean because that's what I've been told I am, and that's what I think I am now. And instead of like taking control of your actions and saying, I can be whatever I want to be. I can wake up tomorrow and do something different than I did yesterday. And I think that's another part of the self-healing journey, is taking a lot of responsibility for owning not only what's happened, but also how you're going to move forward. Because just because something has already happened doesn't mean it has to continue to happen.
Yeah. I love that you're giving us like a lot of very tactical things. I think like particularly the part about like this, I was angry at that point because of XYZ situation. And like that is not defining me. So separating the action from the definition of who you are is hopefully a little bit more tangible, the thing that people can attempt to do. And I know it's not always easy to do, especially when you're really in it. Yeah, the last thing I would love to learn more about is just, through all the coaching that the both of you have received and a lot of just the work that you guys have done, through the last, couple years, what are some tactical things, right? Especially for people who are kind of people who are going through it right now or trying to heal, right? Post breakup. What are some tactical things that worked well for you guys, that you can share with our audience?
I can go. Yes. We're like going back and forth because it's so funny. I feel like Sabrina and I both have talked about this. For me, some things that have been very helpful that I still continue to do, and not even in relation to relationships, just in general, this whole concept of limiting beliefs. And I think I kind of alluded to it by talking about taking away what you've done with who you are, and flipping around the narrative. I think our minds love to just play a loop. We're like, I am this, I did that, I'm a loser, I'm a whatever. And instead, what I try to do is if I catch myself in a spiral like that, or even if I just feel really crappy one day, I start to write down what it is I'm thinking. So I'll like write down sentences like, I don't feel worthy of a relationship because the last one didn't work out. or I don't feel worthy of this promotion because I haven't, met my number every quarter, or whatever it is. So for me, what has helped is to write all that stuff down one by one, and then go back and rewrite them in a positive sense. So like, I am worthy of a relationship because I know what it takes to put the time and effort in to make yourself better and to be there for someone else. I'm worthy of this promotion because I've explored so many other avenues of how to help my team. And it's not just about meeting my number every quarter. And it's like really getting granular on like flipping the script on yourself, because I think more often than not, we just stay with the same narrative, and we say it enough, we believe it. And that's just how it works. So reframing it and then regurgitating that to other people, talking about it to other people and saying, hey, I just want to tell you that I was feeling really crappy about my job, but you know what? I'm going to get that promotion because I did X, Y, Z. And like taking the narrative from your head and actually verbalizing it has helped me as well. I would say those things from my coaching have really been beneficial and continue to be beneficial. And then one more thing I think that is really good to have in your artillery is having someone to go to discuss these things with. And it doesn't have to be like your best friend either. Like Sabrina and I haven't been in the same city at all. And probably in our entire friendship have never been in the same city. But it's really nice to just have a check-in every once in a while and to say, hey, this is something I'm dealing with today and would love your thoughts. And I was just talking to a friend on the phone about not letting a bad feeling metastasize. And she's like, I just don't want to, bore other people with my problems or complain or be that person. And I'm like, it's not complaining if you say it once and say, I'm feeling really bad about this right now, but here's what I think I want to do. Or what do you think about this solution? And it's super healing for you and super healing for the other person. Because if we don't talk about what we're going through, like, how do you connect with people? You know what I mean? So those would be my like 3 big tactical things. Rewrite the script, say it to other people, and then talk about your problems with people and like in a positive sense and connect with people that way.
Yeah.
Mic drop, Sam. Yeah. Not sure how to follow that, but yes, plus just big plus one to rewriting the story, right? And these positive affirmations and writing them down like 100%. And just wanted to once again touch on how, you and I, when we talk, I feel like it is a healing journey. Like when you call me and you want my advice, I heal through that. When I give you advice, I almost like heal myself as well. And that's so beautiful because ultimately we're so connected, right? And just having that voice and just, sharing that with someone that you trust, it's so critical. So definitely encourage all of our listeners to hopefully have that person and find that person in their life that they can just connect with. For me personally, what's worked really well is number one, reflecting and really looking at the patterns in your previous relationships. It was so eye-opening to me in how much I was going for a certain person and realizing that a lot of it was how I saw myself. I saw if I picked a certain person, it showed way more about me than about this person, right? It almost showed like I feel like I'm not worthy of the full thing. I'm worthy of a certain person. And that was a sort of a good mirror. And as I just wrote down all the aspects of those relationships, it just really helped me identify these patterns. And then, journaling, writing down what you really want, your non-negotiables, and then just sitting with that. And also not, and when you go on dates, sure, like have fun, but also what I did wrong, I guess, I then didn't really care about my non-negotiables anymore because I had that spark and that initial excitement. And so just staying true to yourself. And lastly, being okay with that certain people are not there to stay. Like people come into your life for a reason, for a season, but not all are here to stay. And so not getting too hung up if something doesn't work out. You're just meant for something better. And yeah, meditating, I used to not like it at all. It just wasn't for me. But now I I'm very intentional about it, and I'm thinking about it more. Like if my mind wanders, that's okay. It's more about how can I bring my mind back, and how can I just sit in the stillness and control my thoughts versus letting my thoughts control me. And when I just had that, I just have I'm much more excited about meditation, because I used to get hung up on, oh, my mind wanders, so I'm not going to do it. But it's just about, that's okay. I have this thought. Let's bring it back. Thank you, mind, but I'm still gonna I'm gonna go this path now and not letting you distract me. So, yeah.
+1 on the meditation. I also was not someone who believed that it worked. Like I would hear people say they meditated and I'm like, good for you. Okay, do you do that? I'm like, what is the point of that? And I just wanted to say that something about meditation that I've learned, and another tactical thing my coach taught me was like when your mind is wandering and thinking of like a negative thing, or saying, no, you have to be worried about this because this might happen. And that's oftentimes, I feel like what I'm thinking about is, don't do that because that could be scary. And it sounds differently, obviously, in my head, and it sounds very convincing. But I have been teaching myself to say, like, that's really helpful information. Thank you so much, but we don't need you today. Like, we don't need that protector today. That's for when I'm actually in danger. And I'm like 99% of the time not in danger. So it's like good to talk to yourself that way, to recognize that those thoughts are simply just thoughts, and they're there to try to protect you from danger that could occur. But more often than not, it's totally useless and more just inhibitory than it is helpful. So I think meditation is huge for discovering and really finding that in your own mind, because we often believe that that's just us, but it's not.
Yeah. Oh, this is all very helpful. Wish I had that 2 weeks ago when I was spinning out of control. Sabrina knows. Sam, I'll have to tell you all about it. But this is very helpful. And I feel like it's fascinating to see like the different techniques that the two of you uses in different situations, what's worked, what hasn't worked as much. Like it's just so interesting because I'm very new to this, and I feel like the both of you have done just so much work already, and it's already on the path. Well, thank you both. Thank you both for the techniques and the ideas. Before we close, Sam, I know you're working on something very exciting, so can you give us a little teaser?
Yeah, so I'm writing a psychological thriller, and it makes so much sense because of my fascination with people's minds and how they work. But I'm really excited about it. I've definitely been taking a little bit of a hiatus on it, but back to writing away, and super excited about just sharing it with people eventually. It'll be definitely a book that is relatable, but also very intriguing. So it's set in San Francisco naturally, because that's where I live, and really like kind of around just the funkiness of the city and the history. And if anybody has done any research on San Francisco's history, it's pretty fascinating. So it definitely makes for a good story. So I'm really pumped about it. Thanks for mentioning it.
Yeah, we're also very pumped about it. Every time you post any storyboarding or any like work in progress online, we're just so excited about it. Oh, can't wait. Well, again, thank you so much, Sam, for being here today with us. We learned so much from you, and we love having you here. We would love to hear from our audience as well. Let us know how you've healed, what has worked, what hasn't been as helpful in your healing journey. Please email us at whereisthelinepod@gmail.com, and subscribe wherever you find us. Thank you.
So